Hi, it's Kevin with Sun Stream Infrared Saunas, and welcome to another video. This is video 2 in a series that we're doing. It's October 2023, and I'm doing sort of an updated series of videos for EMF testing, looking at EMF magnetic fields, ELF electric fields, and also RF in the infrared saunas. We're going to be doing some electric field testing and also some body voltage testing in this video. But before we do that, just a little bit of information explaining the tests. And in the first video, I did a little recap of the marketplace, explaining that we've got sort of 3 different groups of the infrared sauna companies with different degrees of EMF and ELF reduction. In group 1, we've got the simpler, less expensive saunas that aren't canceling out either EMF magnetic fields or ELF electric fields. Group 2, we've got saunas that have reduced the EMF magnetic fields to different degrees. They might be quite low, might just be a moderate reduction, sort of medium levels of magnetic fields, but then not doing anything at all regarding electric fields. And then group 3 would be just a very small number of infrared sauna companies that are canceling out both EMF magnetic fields and ELF electric fields. In 2019, late 2019, Sun Stream Saunas introduced our EHS system that moved us from canceling just magnetic fields to also canceling out the electric fields. And again, that's a very small group of sauna companies, just 3 or 4 that do cancel out both of these different forms of electrical radiation. So I think it's important to understand what's out in the marketplace. The vast majority of sauna companies are not reducing electric fields. So the testing that we're doing today here certainly would not be the same as in a lot of infrared saunas. This is what we'll be using. We're going to be using our Gigahertz Solutions meter made in Germany. This is a good meter to test electric fields. We've got a new meter for the testing. Comes with a certificate of calibration. You'll notice the black wire here connected to the side of the meter. This is headed over to the ground pin of the wall outlet. The guidelines that come with the meter do recommend having the meter grounded for testing. As the guidelines mention, the field meter should be connected to ground potential in order to obtain reliable, reproducible testing results. It also talks about keeping the meter close to your body and not having any other people out in front of the meter. And the tester should always be behind the meter as well. So we'll do our best to follow the guidelines for the electric field testing. Next up, we'll be using a standard multimeter. We'll be using this to do a body voltage test. The multimeter is set to AC volts. It's grounded as well. You'll notice the black line here. That's headed over to the wall outlet as well. It's equipped with a little brass bar here to hang on to. And we'll be using that to do the body voltage test. Now, what is body voltage testing exactly? Well, as the name implies, we're testing voltage, and voltage is potential. It can be thought of as pressure. And what we're measuring here is the potential between my skin and the potential on the ground wire. So the voltage on my skin compared to the voltage on the ground wire, which is typically 0, although it may have just a few millivolts on it. And the meter is in between my skin and the ground, and thus we'll get a reading on here in volts. Now, I mentioned that volts are potential and can be thought of as pressure. A good analogy is, let's consider a water hose, a gardening hose. If you've got a spray nozzle on the end of your garden hose, it's turned on the tap over there on the side of your house. Well, you have pressure in the hose. There's potential there, but nothing's happening yet. Nothing's getting wet until you pull the trigger on the spray nozzle. So the pressure in the hose is very similar to the voltage on an electrical wire. Let's consider a lamp that's plugged into a wall outlet, but the switch on the lamp is turned off. Well, we have voltage on the power cord going from the wall outlet to the switch on the lamp. We have voltage on that line. There's potential, or think of it like pressure, but nothing's happening yet. The light isn't on. Turn the switch on, the electricity is flowing. Now we have current, something's happening, the light's on. That current is measured in amps. And I just point this out because let's be clear on what the body voltage test is. Again, we're measuring voltage, but we're not measuring current. And the point being there that this is measuring the volts that are on my skin, and that's a result of electric fields surrounding us, which they always are. If you're inside any building with electrical wiring in it, we have electrical fields in the air. We'll do a quick example here in a minute to demonstrate that. These electric fields, they create a voltage on the surface of our skin. But we're not measuring the current that's flowing through our body. And I think a lot of folks, including myself, before I started reading up on this, at first I thought, oh, it's a measurement of electricity flowing through my body, but it's not. It's a potential for that to happen, and it may well be happening, but it's not telling us that indeed it is happening. I should mention, I'm not an electrical engineer. I'm not a building biologist, but having read up on a few articles on this topic, particularly one from Kathy Cook, and this was from the ShieldYourBody.com website. She's a certified electromagnetic radiation specialist and a certified building biology environmental consultant, certified by the Building Biology Institute. And in her article, she discusses the limitations of measuring body voltage. She mentions voltage is the electric pressure difference between 2 points. As I mentioned, in this case, it's between my skin and the ground line. So the electric pressure difference between 2 points, but, and this is what's important, numerous studies have proven it's current that is causing the biological harm, not the voltage. A body voltage test may detect the local electric field charge on the skin, but will not represent the actual current that would travel through the body under wet versus dry conditions. Now, she mentions wet versus dry conditions because the impedance of our skin is different depending on moisture on the skin. And the impedance is greater when it's dry, and it's less when it's wet. And that was very intriguing because that no doubt has some relevance in the sauna. If we're soaking wet in sweat and the skin impedance is lower, then, well, there probably is some electrical current running through our body as a result of surrounding electric fields. But we don't know that from this test. She carries on, therefore, only knowing the voltage won't tell us the impedance of the skin or the actual amount of current that will eventually flow. There could be significant voltage, but no actual current flow due to a high impedance. Body voltage doesn't tell us how many electrons will actually penetrate the body. It's not essential that we all fully absorb and understand this to have a takeaway from the test. The body voltage test is interesting. A lot of folks do it. It is used by building biologists, particularly for evaluating mitigation measures that someone might have undertaken. If you've changed things up in your bedroom, say, rearranged some wiring, if you do a body voltage test before and after you're rearranging, this can be a good tool to evaluate the success of your mitigation methods. And it does seem to have taken a place in the infrared sauna marketplace. Amongst the very few companies that are reducing electric fields in the saunas, one of the major brands, they advertise electric field average in the sauna of 3.4 volts per meter, and that's measured probably with a meter like this, similar. And they've got a photograph of an individual in the sauna using this same meter, I believe, and measuring 0.571 volts. So we're talking about a fraction of a volt. That can be stated in terms of volts or millivolts. 0.571 volts or 571 millivolts. Move the decimal point 3 places. Another site that presents body voltage testing in their advertising is at 48.1 millivolts. Less than the other guys we just mentioned. Or in terms of volts, that would be 0.0481 volts. Probably easier to compare it in millivolts, perhaps, because we're looking at 571 for the first guys, about 48 for the other guys. But in each case, we're looking at a fraction of a volt. We've done a lot of body voltage testing in the past few years on the Evolve EHS saunas. I haven't made videos for all of the testing. We've had individuals test as low as 55 millivolts, and I believe as high as 180 millivolts. So you can see, we're in this range with the other companies that reduce electric fields. It's never the same number twice, it never seems to be. I've done a few tests in this sauna. It's different a little bit every time. We'll see what we get today. I should probably mention one more thing before we get underway with the testing. If you're doing any of this testing yourself, or if you have an infrared sauna that cancels out electric fields, you want to make certain that your grounding is correct in your home wiring. And that can be done easily with these simple little devices. Simply plug it into the wall outlet. There's some indicator lights on here that will tell you that the grounding is correct, or if you have an open ground, and it can identify some other problems that you don't want to have. But it is essential that the grounding in your home's wiring be correct, functioning, for the electric field mitigation system in infrared saunas to work properly. Essentially, the electric fields have to escape on the ground wire. And certainly for the body voltage test to be valid, you'd need proper grounding. We'll just do a quick example here of the body voltage while we're standing by the table. Just standing here, and I'm surrounded by my studio lights, and neither of these saunas are turned on, not the heaters, but I've got a few lights around me, and I'm measuring just under 600 millivolts. Yeah, it's 560, jumping around a little bit, of course. Perhaps the camera can zoom in on that. And interesting that, it's about the same in either hand. Moving a little bit, but it's in this same range in the mid 500s, 567 right now, 564. If I put it here, 557. Over here, 560, 561. So you can see it's about the same on all the different spots on my body, and I found that interesting. I'm learning here along with you, perhaps, watching the video. It's telling me that the electric fields that are in the air, my skin is, well, it's considered like a pressure. There's a voltage created across the surface of my skin, and it seems to be about the same. I've also checked down on my bare leg. It seems about the same anywhere I check on the surface of my skin. So that's intriguing, that my body is receiving these electric fields that are floating in the air, and they're being conducted on the skin. As I mentioned earlier, as to what's transmitted through my body is another question, and perhaps it'll be another video in the future. But for now, we're going to get underway. We're going to do our survey through the sauna with the electric field meter. We'll do some body voltage testing. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.